Hey, welcome into This Week in Indiana Football. We're back. We took off last week with the Indiana Hoosiers, who were also on a bye week of their own. We are back again this week, though. As always, with me, Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com, the walk-on turned scholarship superstar, Mitchell Page, from his vehicle. Once again, it's become a regular thing with him.
On the road.
Wait, what is it?
Road Rage.
That's right. Road Rage with Mitchell Page. And, as always, with a beanie this time, Joe, the law firm Lincoln. And as always, he's in Bloomington, if you haven't figured that out by now. He is our correspondent
on location.
And Mitchell, I do believe we have a special guest, viewer, listener in attendance with you.
Yeah, she's the one that makes the ship go. This is Laura. Laura, pop your head in here. The one, the only. Laura, hi. Future Page, but story for now. She's the bomb. And we've got about 9.5 hours left on this drive. So she has to suffer through listening to me talk, but that's no different than every day. So
this is, I believe, the third time you've come to us from your vehicle going somewhere of interest. Yeah. Where is it you're going now?
Yeah, so I'm back on the road up north to Indiana again. Hopefully this will be the last time this year outside of maybe Christmas. But we are going up there for a wedding. And as I was saying this pre-show, I feel like I should like weddings. It seems like everybody's really happy to go to a wedding. I've been dreading it. Nothing, like my clothes don't fit. The pant I had to order. I'm in the wedding, and I did one of those online order things where you put in your measurements or whatever. I mean, these pants couldn't be tighter. I had tights in college that were more loose than these pants. If they're gonna split, as I'm destined for split pants at the wedding, I'm gonna be that guy, and I'm just not really looking forward to it. So that's currently where my mental state is at. But I'm excited.
Would you rather be at a wedding or an Indiana football game at this juncture?
See, that's not a very nice question. Because I am. Yeah, please, Dustin. I got to gather my answer before I say.
Okay. Well, you have time to think. There's love in the air. You're traveling with your bride to be. I just heard her last name for the first time. Does this mean you're going to get your storybook ending, Mitchell?
It's actually shocking. I've never heard anyone say that.
Really? Because I'm really clever. That's what we're finding out.
I mean, have you ever heard that?
That is like a hashtag for the wedding. I think you just came up with that.
Look at her just getting on the show.
To finish
good for
the story, you have to turn the page.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to make a note of that.
Yeah.
That was very good.
I mean, I feel like everybody's backing off of my hard work, but whatever.
Yeah.
We have to give it to Dustin.
That's just that's a little prequel to how creative you are, because we've got a recruiting pitch coming. So
I can't wait.
Stay tuned. Dustin's going to convince the country to come to Indiana.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, this guy, recruiting coordinator extraordinaire, Hootie McSure, has not completed his pitch yet. Some things got in the way. He's very poor at time management, so you wouldn't think he'd be a very good recruiting coordinator. But he gets the job done. We'll see what he has to say next week to try to convince Mitchell to return to Indiana.
Yeah, I can't wait. Is this going to be a video?
Yes, it's going to be a video.
So are we going to play it on here and then tweet it out, or what's the strategy?
I'm going to send it to John and Joe, and hopefully we can upload it during the show.
Gotcha.
Podcast.
We can do that.
It has to be on Twitter too.
Yeah, and then I'll send it out on Twitter. If you guys approve of it, then I'll fire it out on Twitter.
I already approve.
All right.
Well, man, I guess we just have to get into it, right? We have to talk about what's going on. And I know for those of you who listen to Indiana Sports Beat every day, you've heard the gist of it already this week. Indiana has Penn State coming to town. You've already dropped what is maybe not your last winnable game against Rutgers 2 weeks ago, but that was the game where we said if Indiana dropped Nebraska, Maryland, and then Rutgers, we said it was probably a lost cause for the rest of the season. And that doesn't mean that you can't steal a win against a Michigan State or even your big rival with Purdue in the old Oaken bucket, but it definitely seems like at this point that things have spiraled out of control. If you're Indiana, you want to do anything you can just to avoid losing 9 consecutive games, as Mitchell said a few weeks ago, for the second season in a row, because you already don't have momentum. You lost all momentum that you had in prior seasons a year ago. You're continuing to squander anything that may have been left this season. You got off to a hot start. You may have the biggest upset in maybe not just the Big Ten, but in the country retroactively, as Dustin has pointed out multiple times on Jim's show against Illinois. But that means absolutely nothing because you're now 3-5. You have 4 games to go, and not only that, you've also lost Cam Camper. Tom Allen announced at the beginning of the week your best wide receiver out with an ACL injury. Indiana can't go an entire season without their best player getting hurt or just something tragic happening. So I'm not trying to say it's luck. It's not luck, but that just it piles on to all of the issues that have already surfaced from this season. And trying not to beat a dead horse, but that about sums up to where we're at right now with this Indiana football team, with Penn State coming to town off of a close loss to Ohio State. Dustin, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on Indiana going in these last 4 games?
So I'm going to stick specifically with Penn State. So one thing I would keep an eye on is typically Penn State in the James Franklin era has not played well after a loss. They did play well earlier this season after they got boat raced by Michigan. They hosted Minnesota for the whiteout game. They played really well, but Minnesota was starting a first-time starting quarterback. They're going to go into Bloomington into kind of a sleepy atmosphere. Nobody's going to be expecting a lot. 3:30 kick after a big time. I don't know that it's a letdown, but they had opportunities to win that game against Ohio State. So I think Indiana's going to try to make a statement early in this game, try to set the tempo, try to make Penn State play from behind, because I think they'll have that opportunity. Whether or not they take advantage of it is another story. The other thing I'd like to see from IU this week is you've got 4 games left. You've got the 4 games. John, you look so defeated.
No, I'm not.
It's just like staring into the abyss.
I promise I'm listening. I'm just. By the way, I'm on my 3.5 cup of coffee today.
You're
I'll go and point that out.
30? Okay. I'd be up until like midnight tomorrow.
It is half calf. I'll throw that.
I'm also like 35, so
he's pounding one too.
Everybody's drinking coffee. I'm gonna go get like some Metamucil or something. What's that stuff called? Ensure. That would help me.
See, just like Indiana's offense, we are once again off track.
Correct. This is fitting. This is a theme for the game.
Isn't Ensure a laxative?
No, Ensure is like that stuff where old people to help them build strong bones. I don't know.
Old people sometimes need, that as well. So I don't know what you need for yourself, but do that on your own time.
It's definitely not coffee. You got the 4-game redshirt rule. Take advantage of it. Get some guys some experience. Do a lot of rotations. You don't have anything to lose. That's what I want to see from Indiana's standpoint. Try to set the tempo early. Get some new fresh faces in there. Get some young guys in there. Take advantage of that 4-game redshirt rule, and maybe try to shock the world. Because I think that you're not beating Ohio State. So if you want to get a signature win on your resume, this is going to be your best chance.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, kind of want to dovetail off that just a little bit. Thinking about this earlier, what Indiana has left on their schedule. Obviously, Saturday's a big game. We already touched on Ohio State. As if Indiana didn't have anything to lose in the past in this season, it has been absolutely blown out of the water now. So this team knows where they're at. They knows what opportunities they have in front of them. If they win either the Penn State or Ohio State game, I know that's a laughable thing to say, but what that could do for the program overall, if you just even stay close in one of those games, make it exciting, make the Big Ten Network or ESPN put you on there. That gets you a little bit of coverage at least, you know. Or I mean, it could be CJ Stroud throwing for a Big Ten touchdown record though, so who knows? But
we're really digging deep.
There are. What was that?
I said we're really digging deep here, aren't we?
We're trying.
Yeah. But I think that there are those opportunities ahead of this team. I think that Dustin is absolutely right. I even had that in what I wrote before I came on here. I mean, getting those freshmen on the field, getting them some experience, a little bit of damage control with this highest ranked recruiting class that you've ever had. I think you have to try and keep those guys happy for as long as you can. And I think that playing against teams of this caliber could be something that keeps them, you know, thinking forwardly of Indiana at this point. But, you know, it's just this team has been riddled with some bad fortune, also had some tough breaks and some weird stuff going on behind the scenes too. So it's a weird time too, because basketball is starting back up and this campus has kind of shifted that way. So I think that this team needs to try their best to keep their head on straight and not just mailing it in. But we'll see what they come out with on Saturday.
I know you left me last, and I'm gonna.
We knew we had a big spiel coming.
I appreciate that. I've been thinking, and there's a couple key points. Joe kind of reminded me of one thing that I'm gonna say real quick. Last year, Indiana mailed it in so bad it was almost like cancel the season. There was no reason to even go out there. There was no fight, no nothing at anybody. If that's the Indiana team we see on Saturday, I won't go any farther than that, but if that's the Indiana team we see, that's a big problem. It starts to become kind of a staple of the program, that when things aren't going well, we mail it in. That would be 2 years in a row, and that would be really disappointing as an alumni and as just a really big fan of the team. Secondly, I'm not going to name any names, but you guys will know what I'm talking about. If you start a kid that's in the transfer portal, if you start him at quarterback, that is also a very concerning path to go down for your football team. What kind of message does that send to anybody else that's on the team? I don't believe that they elected him captain for a reason. I'm sure he's a great kid. But if I'm thinking about myself in that locker room, a kid puts his name in the transfer portal, he's done here. Most teams, if you enter the transfer portal, you don't come to practice anymore. And if he starts on Saturday, that would be concerning. I will leave it at that. And then lastly, when you talk about Cam Camper, he's been one of the best surprises of the last couple of years. I think that kid is absolutely dominant and obviously a huge loss for him. But it's a time with, you're not going to beat Penn State. I'm going to pick Indiana later to win because I do every week. But you're not going to beat Penn State. You're not going to beat Ohio State. Very unlikely beat any of the other teams on the schedule. 9 straight is probably in your future. Put every young kid you got in the game. So we don't need to see senior offensive linemen. The senior offensive linemen I don't think have one block all season. Just a touch of somebody. So let's get the young kids in the game, get them some experience. We don't block anyone anyways, so might as well get the young kids a chance and feel what it feels like when the bullets are flying for a team that's competing for the college football playoff. That's going to be your best competition. Those kids will take serious experience out of that. and hopefully be able to build on it next year. I totally agree with you, Dustin. You throw as many young kids as you can into the game and roll the balls out. Keep it simple. Take shots down the field. Be aggressive on defense. That's the only real shot you have to keep it close. So that's what I'd be looking for. A bunch of young guys, and please, God, don't start a kid that's in the transfer portal.
We'll touch on two things here. First, we keep talking about if they lose 9 straight, they go 3-9. I'm not going to act like I know everything here, but I don't think it takes much to predict that if Indiana finishes the season 3-9, there is going to be significant turnover. I don't think you keep Dason McCullough, and I think along with that comes a decent chunk of that recruiting class that we were talking about. And that's when, if you don't think the wheels have fallen off now, that's going to be the biggest indicator in the offseason that Tom Allen has got one foot out the door. I'm not on his own accord, but kind of being helped out the door, because if at that point you had all of this buy-in from a couple of years ago, whenever people thought that you were going to be able to challenge for the Big Ten East, and I can't believe we're even talking about that again at this point, that was a real thing at some point during this tenure. But the fact that you've taken that, you had all of the power that you could have ever imagined for Indiana football in your hands. You had recruiting prowess that you never really could have thought of prior to that. And all of that not only just goes out the door figuratively, but now it can literally go out the door because of the one-time transfer rule. So you immediately lose all of that because these players have the free will to do whatever they want. And that almost makes it that much harder next season for Tom Allen to do anything to bring this program back, unless he's able to get somebody in the transfer portal himself.
He might need a transformer too, to be quite honest.
Good God.
I don't think Optimus Prime playing quarterback would be able to stand in there in our current situation.
And it's just, I made my point there, but it's going to be, if you thought it was hard for Tom Allen to dig himself out of this at this point, if he can't find anything to take with him into this offseason, I think the writing will be on the wall for next year, unless something, that we're not talking about right now happens to give them a little push in 2023. So
I think I'm going to add one thing to that. I think if you start, this is kind of what it boils down to. If you start seeing those kids leave, you had statistically in terms of ratings, recruiting ratings and everything, the best team that's probably ever been assembled. You had them on campus, according to the rankings. And if you start losing those kids, that tells me, that tells the team, that tells the fan base that you've lost the locker room.
Yeah.
And once somebody loses the locker room, that's all she wrote. There's no getting that back. It's too long of a period. Kids are there for 4 or 5 years. You can't recycle that quickly to win it back.
Especially when you have this whole LEO thing. Like your whole thing is locker room. That's what his sales pitch is to these recruits. And whenever they see that that's not working, they can see Tom Allen as a phony at that point. Well, and I'm not saying he's a phony as in that's not what he truly believes in, because I truly believe that that's how he works. But phony as in like how this works in terms of success on the field doesn't translate.
Yep, definitely. I think you see the kids start transferring. He's lost the locker room, and that expedites things. It puts a lot more pressure in the very short term to get things turned around. Whereas I think there's still a pretty long run out time that he's got right now. Pressure's on for sure. I mean, you talk to people around the program, the pressure is being applied. They want to see results, and we're not getting them. There's still a little bit of leeway, but you start getting kids that transfer out. I think Dason McCullough is gone no matter what. I think he's going to Ohio State or Alabama or somebody where he can win the national championship. But you start losing some of the 3-star maybe even lower 4-star guys that were all bought in, that's a sign of bad times, bad things going on. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
Here's the thing that would be concerning to me is that when you have a culture and that's your selling point, everybody's got to be completely bought in for it to work. And I'm not convinced for the past 2 years people have been completely bought in. Now, you can say what you want about Minnesota, but PJ Fleck has been very consistent there. And it's because those players buy in, and if they don't buy in, they're gone. I don't know if I'm going to articulate this properly, okay? But if you go back to 2015, and maybe I've already made this point, but I see some similarities here. Go back to 2015 when Michigan State made it to the college football playoff and they got slammed by Alabama. And Mark D'Antonio thought the big thing that was keeping them back was recruiting, right? Was basically not getting the best recruits. What did they do? They got a bunch of 5-star, 4-star guys, came into East Lansing. They did not fit. Well, Michigan State doesn't have a great culture in the first place, but they did not fit into what his idea was, and they went off the rails. They had 1 10-win season in his last 5 years, I think, 4 years, whatever that was. I think that's the same thing here. I think that there's some of that. You're getting the high 3-star, the low 4-star. Sometimes you are getting some mid to high 4-star guys coming in. But just because they're the best player on that card doesn't mean that they're going to be the best player for your locker room. That doesn't mean they're going to be a leader on the field. And I feel like Tom Allen and his staff have maybe turned into a bit of a stargazer and looking more at what they are seeing on 24/7 Sports, on 3 Rivals, as opposed to the attitude, as opposed to what they see on the field, that sort of stuff, instead of doing sheer evaluation of talent. If you have that kind of culture, typically it's going to work and it's not going to look this bad. If everybody buys into a culture, you at least are going to go bowling pretty regularly. That ain't happening. And you got guys that are already hitting the transfer portal mid-season and they're still on the roster. You can talk about losing the locker room. I think it's already lost.
I want to bring up a specific point in the history of Tom Allen as a head coach at Indiana, because I will never forget this moment watching it at home and my dad telling me, you got to come in and see this, because, there's not all that much in the recent years besides 2020. And this was in 2020, but it's just one of those moments that sticks out in your mind. Whenever he got the win, I think it was at Wisconsin.
Yep.
He had a post-game interview on the field right next to the tunnel, and all the players are coming off the field, right? He couldn't answer a question. He couldn't get 5 seconds before every player came right over his shoulder and said, hey, come play for Tom Allen at Indiana. And they were making a recruiting pitch for the guy on the field after the game. What a fall from grace from that moment to where we are now. It is just unbelievable. You have guys doing your job for you, and now you've got a guy who is in the transfer portal still on your roster that might start on Saturday. You talk about a turnaround in a program in such a short period of time and how unfortunate it's been and how it's happened. Man, I mean, if you're an Indiana fan, football-wise, you are just going through the ringer right now, and you're just looking back on those memories saying, what in the world happened here? And is there really a good explanation that you can say to someone that's thinking that? Not really, because there's just a lot of factors that we don't know about. We can speculate as much as we want. We see what's on the field, but whatever's going on off the field has just left a lot of room for that kind of stuff. And I think that it's kind of sad to see, because it was just such a blooming program moment there. And for some, I don't know why, I can't stop thinking about that right now as we just keep talking about this.
That was, for me, that was the moment where I thought Tom Allen's the guy. This guy's going to be here for 10 plus years, unless he does astronomical things where, somebody like Alabama or Florida comes calling, which, good God, I can't believe that is a thought that ever crossed my mind. And I'm not saying that you can't ever get back to that level. Obviously, he's still here and he still has a goal in mind. He's very far from it at the moment. And if you play Penn State is the team at home in 2020 that got this train rolling. And I know there's not a ton of guys on this roster that at least made an impact in that game. You don't have Penix anymore. You don't have Freifogel anymore. You don't have a lot of pieces. You don't have McFadden. But you have guys who saw that happen that were younger on the roster, and now they've grown up, and now they're going to get their chance. And we talk about a sleepy environment for this week. That game was played in front of nobody with, fake crowd noise, which honestly is probably a little bit louder than Memorial Stadium is on a regular basis, if we're being honest here, unless they're sold out. So if you catch Penn State on their heels, and I try to find a positive spin on this. I hope you all don't think I'm being completely ridiculous here. You could give any reason in the world for Indiana to not have a chance in this, and it would be valid. And especially when you consider the fact that they're not going to have their best wide receiver in this game. But if things fall right for Indiana in this game, if luck will have to be just as much in their favor as it was back in 2020 when they had to make Penn State score a touchdown to give themselves a chance to get the ball back we're not even talking about the 2020 season if that doesn't happen. I can't remember what the percentage was, but I'm sure Penn State had a 98, 99% chance to win that game at that juncture that late when all that stuff went down. Everything had to go right for Indiana during those last few minutes. Now, right now, I'm talking about everything needs to go right for a full 60, which, if we're being honest, Indiana hasn't played a full 60-minute game all season.
No.
So to think that that's going to happen in this game is definitely a little far-fetched, but we can't talk about this without at least throwing out the possibility that something could happen if players are able to channel any of that energy from 2 years ago.
By the way, just to go back to Joe's point really quick, I think we are just speculating about what the point or where things kind of went wrong. I think part of it is there's loyalty to a fault there, not just with the staff, but with players. If you've got a defensive back who's getting burned every other deep pass, bench his ass. I mean, you got to have somebody else on that roster ready to go. If you've got an entire offensive line that can't block, put in a group of freshmen. I don't care if they're seniors. I don't care how loyal they've been to the program. I was on a small team when I was in college, right? And the coach directly came up to me and says, "You've been on this team for 4 years. I don't know you damn thing." That's how it is. That's how sports work. You have to put your team, because there are 10 other guys on that team that are trying to win. There's a whole sideline of 99 other guys on that sideline that want to win football games. And you can't be afraid to piss somebody off. And I think that that's gone with his staff and with his players, because there's no excuse for some of these guys. There's no I'm not going to, okay, we won't mention names because apparently we don't do this on this show, but there are the offensive line is god awful. You're telling me you don't have anybody else that can rotate in there. The defensive backfield has been god awful. And yes, I know they did good things in 2020, but it ain't 2020 and you haven't done anything recently. So get some guys in there.
Yeah.
End of rant.
I'm going to I'm gonna rant. Not even rant.
All right.
You guys have been so insightful for the last 10 minutes or so. And you've really got my brain churning. And one, I want to commend you because you're so much smarter than me. It's crazy. But I want to start we're going to start in the past, and then we're going to get to today. I'm going to formulate this whole thing. It's so interesting when you think about that moment at Wisconsin where all the players are coming up and they're jumping on Coach Allen, saying, come play for him, come play for him, come play for him. So a lot of those kids are still on the team. They were on the team last year. It was the same guys, essentially. They were and maybe Walt Fillier and what the heck was the running? Stevie Scott. Those are the two main contributors. But they returned as many starters as anybody in the country last year. So I don't understand. It's just hard to imagine and I think there's maybe a sense of entitlement, whatever it is, but it's just been amazing to see a lot of these guys are still the same guys that we saw on that 2020 team. I'd be curious to know how many guys are on the roster right now that beat Penn State in 2020, especially with the COVID year. I bet it'd be more than you'd think. They've seen what it looks like, and this is outside of Coach Allen now. If you're a player and you have seen what it takes to beat some of these teams, it doesn't take – everybody always talks about 60 minutes of football, and I'm not saying this is wrong, John, at all, but everybody talks about 60 minutes. It does. It's a 60-minute game, but when you look, especially in the Big Ten, the games come down to 2, 3, or 4 plays that change everything. You talk about that kid scoring at Penn State. Some of the games I can remember off the top of my head, we were taking it to Ohio State in our place, and Zeke Elliott runs 90 yards for a touchdown. They held him to like 20 yards on 25 carries, but he had 3 carries of 80-plus for touchdowns. So you do really great, but then it's 3 plays. When you're on that roster, you've seen what it looks like. You know that you don't have to score a touchdown every play. All you need to do is continue to do your job, trust the guys, make 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards. The big ones will come. You just haven't felt like that. Everything's been frantic since 2020. They're rushed. I feel like they're squeezing sand, and sand obviously just goes right out. Goes right between your fingers. They're just squeezing. And I think us as fans are doing the same thing. We want that back, that excitement so badly that you just squeeze, and you can't play free. The reason that 2020 happened, nobody expected anything. Those kids were having fun. Ty Freifogel was making catches that weren't even 50-50 balls. They were 25-75 balls. He had no business making those plays, and he was just flowing. He's not overly athletic. He's not super fast. He really doesn't catch it that well. But when you're playing the way that they're playing, everything snowballs. And that conversely goes to when you're playing bad, that snowballs as well. And I think that's what we saw last year. You got punched in the face, and it snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. And what I really expected out of this team was you had some of these veteran guys that had seen it in 2020. We're going to get rid of all that. No entitlement. We got the chip on our shoulder. We came here for a reason. Let's get it back. And you just haven't seen it. Which leads me to this weekend. You've got all of these outside people telling you, me included, telling you, I can't believe you're going to start a kid in the transfer portal. You can't believe you can't block anyone, haven't blocked anyone for 7 games, haven't touched anyone, can't cover anyone. What is going on? Fire Tom Allen is all over Twitter. So how do you respond? If we want to talk about culture, your back has never been more against the wall than it currently is. Last year, they were horrific. But Tom Allen was never really on the hot seat. It was never your guy that you ride or die with, that's LEO, that you jumped on his shoulders, come play for this guy. You never had that. It was never, there's a chance they're coming to take this guy away and split us all up. And I think we're going to find out really quick if they're already split, like you said, Dustin, because this is a team that you beat 2 years ago that's going to want to beat you by literally 1,000. Penn State's going to try to beat them by 1,000 points. I don't care if there was nobody in the stadium. That 2020 loss sent them on a bit of a free fall themselves. A lot of kids on that roster were on that team as well. I don't expect them to come in sleepy. They're going to come in and try to kill Indiana. And we're going to find out so quick, probably within the first quarter. Truthfully, I don't want to be harsh, but find out what next year is going to look like in terms of players, in terms of coaches. We're going to find it out in the first 15 minutes. It seems like it's been a 2-year buildup to get to this point, and it's just an absolute free fall. And I don't know. It's been so interesting to watch just things fall apart when you're pressing so hard. It'd be an interesting study, I think. That was a lot to say. I'm sorry, but
I love
that was like a State of the Union address, but for Indiana football.
That's what we need, man. What is the state of the union? Are we going to bow up? Or are we going to go to bed? That's.
Hey, you keep bringing up.
That's what they're missing, man. That's the 2020 team had a bow up mentality. They gave up 1 billion points. They forced a lot of turnovers, but they gave up 1 million yards and 1 billion points that year. They got a bunch of 50-50 balls to go their way because they bowed up. Said, I don't care if you score, we'll go score right back. And they haven't had any fight since the end of that season. Honestly, since before the Tennessee onside kick. That's when everything.
And look where Tennessee's at. That was the turning point for both programs, right? Tennessee's number one in the college football playoff rankings.
I would prefer not to play them this year. Let's just say that.
But they have a different head coach. They didn't have Josh Heupel when Indiana played him. It was
Do you think that
who was the guy before him?
I don't know.
Jeremy Pruitt.
Maybe we'll have to put out an offer. Maybe he'd like to come coach the offensive line or something at IU.
There you go.
Who, Josh Heupel?
Yeah. Just curious.
So Mitchell, and then we'll maybe, depending on where this goes, you may get into pick'ems right after this. But you keep bringing up the possibility of Jack Tuttle starting. Now, earlier this morning, and this morning as in Wednesday morning, for those of you who aren't, you're not listening to this on a Wednesday, obviously, because we're recording this on a Wednesday. On Wednesday morning, they released the depth chart for the week, and it listed Bazelak as QB1, Tuttle as QB2, which honestly, even if that's true, I think that's still a mistake. I think it should be Dexter Williams as QB2. But you keep mentioning, I think you've said it 3 or 4 times now, you're worried about Jack Tuttle being the starter. Do you think that there's any sort of real chance that depth chart is a lie?
Uh-oh. I obviously am I back? I just went through
you're back.
a bad. Okay.
You're
so
good.
I got that
You
entire
didn't miss
question.
what I asked, did you?
No,
did you miss my entire question?
No, right as you ended your question, I went through that spot. So I heard everything. I think there's definitely a possibility that Jack Tuttle starts. And it's less about Jack Tuttle, right? I think Jack Tuttle's done really good things for Indiana. I don't think he's talented enough to be a Big Ten quarterback, but he's been an asset to the team. It's more about a guy, and I think did I touch on this already? Where you have a guy that essentially told the players, his teammates, I've had enough, right? See you guys later. I'm getting on down the road. To throw somebody that's said that to the team, to put him out there to lead the team, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I would love to see the Dexter Williams kid. I don't care if he goes 0 for 30. I would love to see him. Bazelak's, he is what he is. He's fairly inaccurate. He's a big body. He's taken 1 million hits. Give him a break. Let the young kid go out, sling it. No fear. He doesn't have any bad memories. He doesn't know the offensive line can't block. He's going to go up there and sling it. So,
he'll run. He's going to run when the offensive line can't block. Bazelak can't run.
Bazelak tries. He's just not very fast. And they're on him so quick. So I don't know. I don't know if that is a real. I don't know if running away from guys is a real thing, because I mean there's plays where we don't block anyone on the defensive line, and I don't know how as a quarterback or how a fan or a coach can evaluate a quarterback when that's what it's like. They're playing 7-on-7, but there's a D line. How do you evaluate the quarterback? Like, obviously he's going to be inaccurate. He's getting his chin smashed in every third play. So it's not really an indictment on Bazelak at all that I'd like to see the other guy. I just would like to see the other guy as a preservation thing for Bazelak, because I do think he's a good player. He's got a big arm. He can make throws, and he's led some drives when they needed it. But change it up, man. Let's get Crazy Legs in there. Let him throw it around. I swear, if we could I would call 10 shot plays in the first quarter with the young quarterback that doesn't know any better, if you throw 4 picks, okay, you were going to probably punt anyways if you think it dunked it. So at least arm punt it, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we can have some kids make some plays. I think Donovan McCulley's coming on. Anderson Kobe's coming on. I would love to see him attack down the field, and we'll see, I guess. But, again, I have so many long answers. I'll try to be shorter from now on.
It's okay. You're the alum. You're the one who has genuine – not hate. Hate's not the right word. Like a genuine problem with how things are being run right now. Because
I have pride in the program.
You have stake in this,
yeah.
Essentially.
I have pride in the program. I care about what happens. I think we're still in a good place. We stink right now, but I think it is salvageable. There are a few things that can happen this week that put that in serious jeopardy, but I do believe we're in a good place. It all started with Kevin Wilson. I know that's probably going to be a point of contention. Some fans probably don't believe me, but he started the wave of people thinking Indiana can actually play football. And I think we can continue to ride that momentum. That's where all the recruiting momentum came from. Really momentum for the program. That's why we have a new stadium, is that, man. So we need to ride the momentum of getting our facilities upgraded, getting good players on the field, and not beat ourselves this week by doing some things that are just unnecessary for the future of the program.
If you're listening, Walt Bell, 4 verts all the first quarter with Dexter Williams behind taking snaps.
You don't even need 4 verts. Well, we used to have a play. So I was talking to Coach Kevin Johns, offensive coordinator for the Duke Blue Devils, and my position and offensive coordinator at Indiana when I was there. And we were just reminiscing, talking about some of the plays that we run, because I was watching Duke, and they do a lot of the same things that we do. And I don't know if you guys are paying attention to the Duke Blue Devils, but they score a lot of points. And they're really good on offense, and their quarterback can barely throw it 30 yards. But we were talking about some of the plays that they run, and there was a play. Our offense was so simple. I feel like everything that we do with the motion receivers all the way across the field, wait to snap the ball, guys running in jet motions behind the quarterback, throwing laterals, it's way too much. Football is a game for idiots. I know it. I played it. I am an idiot. Keep it simple. We had a play that literally we'd go 4 wide receivers, 2 guys to the field, and then 2 guys to the boundary. The 2 guys on the boundary would literally walk off the ball. We called it save your legs. And the guys to the field would run verts. They were basically option routes. So if the corner was deep, you break off your route at 12 yards, and it's a super simple read for the quarterback. The inside guy, if it's 2 high safeties, you split them. If it's 1 high safety, you stay vertical. It's a simple read for receivers, simple read for the quarterback. After that play, they come back to the line of scrimmage. They walk off the ball, and the boundary runs the same play. And we would have drives, extended drives, where we called that play 80% of the time. Like 8 times out of 10, we would call that play. And you just don't see any simple shot plays. So if you're listening again, Walt Bell, call Kevin Johns. He's got the secret sauce. He has the secret sauce in Durham. He will bring the secret sauce to Bloomington. He can give you the tips. I just want to see simplicity, man. I want to see simplicity.
Well, there you go. Any other thoughts before we move into pick'ems from the peanut gallery?
Sorry I dominated that. I feel like I do that every time.
No.
Now that we're back in essentially free fall, I got a lot of things on my mind.
You also have an extra week of build-up.
Yeah, there's been a lot of news that had come out in the last week. 2 weeks, I guess.
I feel like if we did a podcast last week, fresh off the Rutgers loss, it would have been a little angrier. It feels like this week is a little more well thought out than it could have been.
I would have talked about golf. I had my club championship this past weekend.
How'd that
You did
go?
a what?
I had my club championship this past weekend. I lost to someone significantly older than me.
Did you shoot over 100?
What's significantly older?
How old do you think he was? 58.
Okay.
Yeah.
So double my age.
Okay. I feel
We
bad.
played the golf course really short, but on the second to last hole, after I had just missed a putt to essentially lose the tournament, one of the guys in my group that was out of it just made a hole in one.
Nice.
Super sick. I don't know if you've ever seen a hole in one before in person, but it's a shocking experience.
I have never seen it.
He just made a triple bogey on the hole before and then knocked it in the hole. It was
What a
awesome.
bounce back.
It was awesome. And that's my golf story for the week.
There you go.
Pickups.
Should we incorporate this week's YouTube comment with your golf story?
Yes. Yes.
What do we call it?
Mitchell sucks. Mitchell can't putt.
Mitchell
All right,
can't-
there we
I
go.
like-
Mitchell
Mitchell
can't
can't
putt. Those of you who have made it this far in the podcast on YouTube or
can't be.
Spotify, comment at Mitchell on Twitter, at Mitchell Page 5, I think is his Twitter handle.
Nailed it. I
To
want
let
to
him
see.
know
Remind me how bad I am at putting. So I
Mitchell
will actually
can't
go
putt.
practice. Yes. Thank you.
I think last or 2 weeks ago was one of the best ones. It was something about Captain Crunch, but it was pretty
Yeah.
funny. I don't remember.
Yep.
He's not the captain of anything. He's not even the captain of Crunch.
What was that in reference to?
Jack Tuttle.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I was on a whole different. I was a problem that week, so I apologize.
All right, let's get into these games. 7 games again, all teams in action in the Big Ten this week. First up, we're gonna. Oh, and I always forget this. Thankfully, I caught myself sooner this time. But Joe, do you have the updated standings for us?
Of course I do. Very, very tough week for a lot of us a couple weeks ago. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can get some. Who had the most wins is a good question.
I think I lost. My pick slate is literally Indiana from 2020 to today. I started off a top 10 team, and now I can't throw it in the ocean.
Well, Mitchell, hold on. Don't say that too soon because you're back in first place.
Come on, baby! I told you I'm just like Indiana. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty, baby. I'm back. I've gotten out all my frustrations. Indiana is the best team in the country.
Okay. So, yeah, last week. Oh gosh. Yeah, the most wins that anybody had was 3, and it was Mitchell. And then, actually, unfortunately for Mr. Dustin Schutte, the first time anyone's ever been blanked.
Oh,
5.
Man.
ooh.
Yeah, so that was a tough one, but I only had 1 win, so it was bad for everybody.
What did I have?
But
2?
Yeah, you had 2. With that being said, in first is Mitchell, second is John, third is me, and Dustin is in last.
Boy, what a fall from grace from first to
We
worst.
shuffle in the standings pretty frequently. Are we still all pretty close?
Right there. We are right there.
Coming down the home
Final
stretch, too.
baby. Speaking of final stretch, I'm going to say this last. Did anybody see what that dude in the NASCAR race did?
Oh,
Yes.
the video
Plus
game
chest
move?
pain, baby.
Dude, that was unbelievable. I don't really know anything about racing. I know nothing about racing. That seemed preposterous that he would try that. How does that even come up in your mind? It felt like everybody else was not moving. They were standing still. He just zoomed right around him. It was a cartoon clip.
Did
I
you?
thought that was amazing.
You didn't hear how he came up with the idea?
The GameCube,
Yeah.
NASCAR 2000.
So that's how it popped in his mind.
Imagine, just think back to NCAA football 2014 or whatever the last one was. All Tom Allen has to do get a couple plays off of there and see what happens if you need a desperation.
Just don't put in number 87 on Indiana from that team. That guy sucked. Yeah.
He also
that character
wasn't the correct
yeah.
ethnicity, right?
Yeah, and he couldn't catch a swing pass. He stunk. So just don't put that guy in, and we'll be all right.
There you go. All right, getting into this week's pick'ems. First up this week, number 2, Ohio State at Northwestern on ABC. OSU 38-point favorites with the over/under set at 57.5. Dustin.
This game is like the Little Giants versus the Cowboys or whoever Al Bundy coached or whatever that guy's name is. Except they're not going to have that miraculous second half. So I think Ohio State covers. Like it's going to be like 60-13 or something.
Yeah. I was thinking about this. First of all, I've said it a couple times. Northwestern is a really bad football team. And Ohio State has shown that they can cover those big spreads, and they'll do it again. I think Ohio State covers.
Go Bucks.
There you go. Enough said. I'm also taking the Buckeyes. The only reason I think that this wouldn't cover, and maybe it wouldn't even matter, is if Ohio State just benches everybody at halftime and plays a bunch of walk-ons or something. I don't know. So
what's wrong with walk-ons?
You aren't a walk-on. You don't fit that bill anymore, Mitchell. You're no longer a walk-on.
Dude, have you seen the video? Walk-on nation for life, baby.
He's on the journey.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you were on the journey.
I was. You know who commented on that video before he was big time and the number 1 overall pick? Baker Mayfield.
Nice.
Really?
We were in this together. Walk-ons for life, and then he totally abandoned us. He doesn't fit the bill anymore.
Is he the one on the NFL commercials that's always cutting the grass on the field?
I mean, that was just so not specific.
Do you know who Baker Mayfield is?
Yeah.
I know who Baker Mayfield is. I just don't know what he looks like.
That's shocking.
Okay,
I just know he played for Oklahoma. That honestly, other than players on Indiana's team and
just
super famous NFL players.
Time out. There's a new hashtag here, and it's John doesn't know Baker Mayfield. That's got to be the new tag.
Why do I need to know what Baker Mayfield looks like?
That's the worst hashtag of all time.
You can just at me and talk about how I don't know who Baker Mayfield looks like if you want to. Just at me for that.
Johnny doesn't know.
There we go. There it is.
Scotty doesn't
Hashtag Johnny doesn't know. Good God.
Johnny
that should be a segment. You all just start showing me. Here we go. You all bring photos of NFL or collegiate players, and I can guess who they are because I probably don't know who they are.
Well, that wouldn't be very fun, would it?
Why would that not be fun if I don't know who they are? That'd be funny, wouldn't it?
I mean, if you don't know a single one of them.
I think I would know some. Like I know what.
What does Joe Burrow look like? What color hair does Joe Burrow have?
No, Joe Burrow is babyface. I know Joe Burrow.
What color hair does he have?
He's blonde, right?
I think it's like a blindy brown.
Go Tigers.
Okay,
Anyway.
so you know Coach O. That's good.
If you don't know Coach O, you live under a rock.
That guy is always. So I think you guys know I grew up a Miami Hurricanes fan, and we were supposed to be good this year. And then Coach O started coming around, and now we tied. We went to overtime against Virginia. It was 6-6 at the end of regulation.
Yep.
So if we could get Coach O to just like watch the games from across the street, I would appreciate that. Because ever since he started coming around, we play offense like. And we being Miami, like I cheer for a bunch of losers, man. It sucks. It sucks. It's a lifetime of
All right, let's bring the train back into the station because once again we've gone off the rails. Next up, no, that's totally fine. Off the rails is fun. Next up, I believe next up is Maryland. No. Minnesota at Nebraska is what we're doing next.
God, what a snooze fest.
Dustin. The over-under 46.5, Minnesota 16-point favorites.
Yeah, Casey Washington probably not playing. I'm going to go Minnesota. Or Casey Thompson, whatever.
I did a little research for this game because I didn't really know what I was needed to expect because both of these teams are just so up and down this year. Not really Nebraska. Nebraska's just been awful, except against Indiana. But regardless, Minnesota has lost 3 out of their last 4 against or they haven't covered 3 of their last 4 games. So based solely on that, in Nebraska, I think the game's at Nebraska, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Nebraska covers.
What's the spread?
16.
Minnesota's favored by 16. I haven't watched a single snap of Minnesota, to be honest. I don't like kind of like some other slogans that I don't really like.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to take Nebraska to cover.
I think
that feels like
I'm surely there's an NIL like a camp up in Minneapolis where they give recruits rowboats and stuff. That'd be a pretty fun little NIL deal. But with that being said, I think Minnesota covers.
This is a little story that probably people don't know. You're going to have to be a pretty big Indiana fan to remember this, but PJ Fleck actually did something pretty cool when he was at Western Michigan, and it tied into that row the boat. That's why I was reminded. Do you remember Isaac Griffith, wide receiver for Indiana? He was there.
Yeah, I know the name. Yes.
Yeah, I think they were on spring break, and he was on a boat and hit his head or something, and basically drowned in the ocean. And they resuscitated him, and he came back to Bloomington. And PJ Fleck had his whole team sign a big oar and wrote him a really nice message on it, like, keep rowing the boat. We're praying for you, stuff like that. So that was actually pretty cool for PJ Fleck. So maybe I'm changing my guess. Minnesota's going to cover because PJ Fleck did a nice thing for my friend.
There you go. All right, next up we have Maryland at Wisconsin, where Wisconsin is favored by 4, and the over-under is set at 50.5. Dustin.
I'm picking Wisconsin to win, but Maryland to cover.
Yeah, this game was another one that I had trouble with. But looking back at Wisconsin's had a weird year. I think that they've lost to the teams that they should have lost to ultimately. Last week, they beat a pretty good Purdue team, in my opinion. I think they keep that momentum going. They cover.
Is the quarterback back for Maryland?
Yes.
Oof. Wisconsin to cover.
I think I'm in the same boat as Dustin. I think Wisconsin will win this, but I think Maryland will cover the spread here. So, moving on, we're going to go to Illinois, number 16 Illinois, hosting Michigan State Spartans. Illinois 17-point favorites, over-under set at 41.5. Dustin.
Talk about a fall from grace. Michigan State's missing some of their best players, Jacoby Windman, Zion Young, Angelo Gross. They can't do anything on offense. Illinois is playing really well on both sides of the ball, so I think Illinois covers a giant spread.
Yeah, I completely agree. That whole tunnel situation has been a nightmare for Michigan State, and I think that continues through the Illinois game, and Illinois keeps absolutely exceeding expectations.
Yeah, I think they cover, but I don't think they even get close to the over. I'd smash that under 41. This feels like a 31-3 type game. Illinois just runs the ball way too much. There's not enough time to get to 41 with Michigan State being so bad. That's expert analysis.
I mean, I was going to say 38-3. I was going to pull out that score out of my ass, but you kind of took 31.
I can't even lie. That's the first score that popped into my head, and then I did the quick math, and I'm like, okay, that would be extra. Don't give it away that you're dumb that easily. So I was able to pivot, but yeah.
So that being said,
38-3 would be not very close. Oof.
Yeah, that would also, if you had the under though, you would get the under. That's only a total of 41 points.
What?
41.5 is what it said at.
Oh, I thought it was at 41. And then I wasn't sure if you knew how gambling works.
Maybe you don't know how gambling works.
Johnny doesn't know.
Hashtag Mitchell doesn't know.
I didn't know that it was at 41 and a half.
All right. Moving on. I think I said Illinois is covering, if I didn't make that clear. So next up, Michigan, number 5, Michigan at Rutgers. Michigan is a 26-point favorite. No half point there, Mitchell, with the total set at 45. Also no half point there. Dustin, what do you got?
Yeah, I think Michigan's pissed that they're behind Clemson in the rankings. I think they're going to play a full game. I'm picking Michigan to cover.
Yep. Michigan's going to cover.
This feels like a game that if you take Michigan to cover, you're going to feel like you have no chance until about the end of the third quarter, and then they're going to cover by 10 points, and it's going to be the easiest cover.
Just like when they played Indiana, obviously. So,
same situation.
Yep. Taking Michigan in this one to cover, and then that leaves us with 2 games, our game of the week, plus our Indiana game, which is obviously not our game of the week, unfortunately. We're going to do that one first, and as usual, we give scores for this one. So starting with Dustin, Indiana against number 15 Penn State. Penn State is a 14-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 50.5.
I think Penn State's going to come out a little flat after last week on the road after a big loss to Ohio State. I think Indiana's going to take some chances with a bye week, hit some plays. I think that quickly goes away by about halftime. So I have Penn State 38, Indiana 20. So I don't know. Is that that's still a Penn State cover, right? They're 14-point favorite.
Yeah, it's an 18-point.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I think it's going to be, I don't know. We talked about Penn State coming out flat, Penn State coming out pissed. I don't really know which version we're going to get because I honestly think they played Ohio State better than a lot of people thought they were going to play Ohio State. So I don't think they're all that defeated after last week. Still think this is going to be a lower scoring game for whatever reason. So I'm going to go Penn State 27-10.
Their fan base is still calling for James Franklin's head, as if for some reason they're pissed about being 6-2.
Right.
And can still win 10 games.
I am shocked that this is only a 14-point spread.
I am too.
I would have guessed 25. With that being said, we all know where this is going.
Yeah.
I think that Zeus himself will strike lightning into the Hoosiers, and we're going to blister by the Nittany Lions on a last-second field goal, 24-21.
Do we want to get a score prediction from the future Mrs. Page?
What do you think?
I think Hoosiers by $1 million.
Hoosiers by $1
Right.
million.
That's all we needed to hear. That's all we needed. We just
Can
needed a
you
little bit
tell
of that.
she watches these stupid games with me? That is.
When I think about the things that you send us in the group chat, and then her having to see your real reactions, I can't even imagine what that's like.
I was going to say it would be funnier to actually have her in on the group chat and then just text us what Mitchell is doing at this juncture of the game.
I can just send video.
Yes.
There we go. Perfect.
I would love a live camera feed of Mitchell watching an Indiana football game.
It's a problem. It's a problem. I should not be in public. It's not good.
We usually watch the games in our apartment.
Yeah, in our apartment with the lights off and the door locked.
Lights off, door locked. Neighbors probably think that there's crimes being committed while you're watching the game. And he's frozen.
Exactly.
Oh,
when they were playing Illinois, can you hear me? When they were playing, was it Illinois?
You're back.
When I was watching the game and something happened. I can't remember what it was, but Indiana was going to win. And I threw something like through the door. Scared the heck out of the dog.
Oh, yeah. He was.
I don't remember what, but it was like midnight. Probably woke up the entire.
We may be losing Mitchell again. Who knows where his vehicle is taking him? Oh, he's back. Did you get your story across?
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
a fan first. I'm an alum second.
Yeah.
I'm a fan first. I ride or die with him. 24-21.
No, when I think of the
Girls,
Illinois
people-
game and your reactions, I just remember you constantly saying to keep throwing at that Reese guy because he sucked.
He
I can't
stinks!
remember what exactly you said.
He's not good. He still stinks to this day. I'm not going to say if we had this, I just know on some teams that I played on, that guy would have been Swiss cheese, French bread, put him in a coffin, maybe quit the game after the game. We would have had 400 yards on that guy. As soon as he started talking crazy, saying who knows what the heck he was saying, he didn't cover anybody. All he did was lay hit and jaw with people. He stunk. He still stinks. And I may change my Illinois prediction because of that. I hate that guy. He's bad. He's the problem with college football. If you can't play, don't talk. If you can play, you say whatever you want. But that kid cannot play. Thank you for reminding me of that. Now I'm sweating.
All right. I might as well go ahead and give my score. I unfortunately agree with Mitchell saying that I'm surprised that the spread's only at 14. I have Penn State winning and covering 34-13. So having those apples, it just seems like one of those games where it'll be like 7-10 in the second quarter, and then Indiana only gets a couple field goals late in the game, and that's how they score. So that's where we're at with this Indiana team. Our game of the week, or at least the game of the week that I've chosen, Iowa at Purdue. Purdue 4-point favorite, and the over-under set at 41.5. Dustin, is this a part of your triangle of confusion?
Yes.
This game?
Which has been snapped this week, or this year,
Oh,
I should say, because Jeff Brom already beat PJ Fleck. But this is part of it. So, interesting stat. Purdue has scored in the Jeff Brom against Iowa. They have scored exactly 24 points 3 times. They have won all 3 of those games. So, having said that, I picked Purdue to win, and I picked them to win on the Eyes on Big podcast. I'll reveal my score, 24-21.
There you go. So that's not a cover then.
That's not a cover.
Mr. Lincoln.
Sorry, need to change
good.
that. For some reason, I thought that was. What's the spread on this game?
A 4.
4.5. Oh, it's 4.
It's gone down to 4.
Oh, wow.
Okay. This is a great game of the week. I think this is a really interesting matchup. There's a lot of things here that are going on for both teams. Iowa finally got over 30 points last week. Granted, it was against Northwestern. But I think the offense showed some signs of life. Obviously, that defense is still top, like 1 or 2 in the Big Ten. I think it's 1. And Purdue's defense is bottom 5 in the Big Ten. So there's a chance for this game. Now, it is at Purdue, so there is that added factor. But for some reason, I'm riding with the Hawks this week, and I think they're going to cover. Actually, let me rephrase. They're gonna win outright and cover.
Is Spencer Petras still playing quarterback for Iowa?
Yes.
Purdue to cover.
The better question is Brian Ferentz still the offensive coordinator?
You can't do much.
I don't know if you've seen this GIF, by the way. There's a really hilarious GIF, and I don't know how it exists or who created it, but it's a group of Tennessee fans in the stands. And this guy's putting his arms up in the air, cheering, and go, yeah! And the caption on the GIF says, Tennessee fans when they #hire Brian Ferentz. Just the most random thing in the entire world. I think it's hilarious.
What were you searching to find that?
I found it from there's a group chat that I'm in. Someone else put it in. But I think it's hilarious.
Brag. All your friends. Sick, bro.
All right. Is it my turn to pick, I think, or to make
man.
Where are we at here?
Yeah.
All right, and then we'll wrap this puppy up.
Purdue. Let's do
I
it.
do, unfortunately, have Purdue winning this as well. Honestly, it doesn't bother me. Purdue Purdue only doesn't bother me as a team. It's fans that bother me. That's the same way with any school. So nothing against Purdue University or their football team, but I do think Purdue will end up winning and covering this. I don't really know what I think the score will be, but
it's an ugly game.
I will say, as much as it is what it is. Yeah, you're in West Lafayette. You're literally by the Wabash River, which is basically a sewer. So don't they throw it? Purdue's kind of like whenever they tear their goalposts down, don't they throw their crap in the river too, just like Tennessee does?
Have they ever done that?
It's the last time they tore down the goalposts that I recall would have been in like 1995 when they beat Michigan State. It's been.
They didn't do it when they beat Ohio State a few years back.
I don't think so.
Drew Brees to Seth Morales.
I don't think they tore the goalpost down. They rushed the field every game that year, by the way. Like the year they went to the Rose Bowl. I think they had 6 home games. They rushed the field for 4.
That's awesome. Seth Morales is a great dude, too. If you're in Indianapolis, get to know him. He's a great dude.
All right, well, we've gone long again, but that's fine. We're kind of making up for last week. But thanks for joining us as always. Be sure, as always, to listen to Indiana Sports Beat Radio on YouTube Monday through Friday, where you'll see Dustin Schutte every day from Outsider. You see Mitchell Page on Fridays, and sometimes Joe Lincoln fills in for me. So you see all 4 of us sometimes. So be sure to find that on YouTube, or if you're listening on radio, you can always catch that in Evansville on ESPN 97.7 The Ref, or in Marengo on 89.9 WBRO. With that being said, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Mitchell can't putt.
That's right.